They didn't leave anything behind. No bodies, warnings, or even a sound. Just a single cryptic word carved into a tree. Croatoan. By far, over 100 individuals, both male and female, young and old, had been consumed by the unknown. No footprints, no marks on the ground, only the looming darkness of an orphaned settlement. Where did the Roanoke settlers disappear to? Was it disease, an attack, or something far worse, hiding behind the shadows? The more we move down the list, the more disturbing the options appear. Yet the answer stays lost somewhere in the annals of history, but the question survives tantalizingly, as if the very existence of the colony was wiped out by some daunting force. Alright, so picture this. It is now 1587, and 115 people, entire families, both children and women, are on the boats, headed towards the New World. They are headed by a man called John White, and they are to establish themselves on Roanoke Island, currently in North Carolina. They're searching for the first English colony in the New World. Consider that for a moment, the first permanent settlement. They were, in effect, preparing that stage for all of America. But instead of establishing a successful colonies, the settlers would turn into one of the big enigmas of American history. The journey had been a bumpy one from the start, and it only went downhill as soon as they arrived in August. The land was dry. Indeed, it was not as rich as the green land they had imagined. They wanted a green land, a fertile land. Cultivating crops was not easy, and it was made worse by the fact that their relations with the local native Indians was at its worst. Still, they pushed on. But if life throws you a curve, there's always something positive that occurs. It's like the lifeline in bingo. This is when one of the historical events took place, when Virginia Dare was born. She was the first English child born on American territory, and was a huge deal for them. Her birth was a turning point, and they thought it was a sign of turning point in their life, and perhaps everything will turn for the better once again. But life in Roanoke wasn't about to get easier. With winter imminent and food stocks running low, John White had to decide it was time he returned to England to restock. One can only imagine how difficult it was for them to make that decision, letting go of your family, your brand new granddaughter, and not knowing what would become of them in your absence. But White said that he would come back as soon as he got the chance. Here's the kicker though. White's return trip did not happen as he had planned it, not by a long shot. Due to the fight between England and Spain, it became near impossible to get a ship back to Roanoke, whereas a simple stop to restock the supplies should have taken not more than a year. It took 3 years. Yes, 3 years. Roanoke marks the beginning of the colonization of America, and when White returned to Roanoke in 1590, everything was off. The entire colony was gone, completely vanished, not a single person in sight. No bodies, no sign of a struggle. Yet the township itself was still intact. It appeared as if they just packed up and left from the place. Except there was one evidence which was as creepy as the scene. A clue. Carved into a wooden post was a single word, Croatoan, and on the tree, just the letters C-R-O, but no Maltese cross, which meant that if they ever left in distress or danger, the cross would have been raised, yet just Croatoan. So, what was that supposed to mean? White decided perhaps they had moved to Croatoan Island, which is about 50 miles away, and is now called Hatteras Island. But it is here that one gets annoyed. A storm arose, preventing White from going to the Croatoan Island, and the strong wind turned the ship's direction, and they had to head back to England. Hence, the trail went cold and never followed to any logical or conclusive end. And so, just like that, people living in Roanoke were never seen again. This is where the real mystery begins to grip you. What was the fate of those settlers? How do more than 100 people just disappear without a trace? Probably one of the more plausible theories is that the settlers were assimilated by the local native tribes, such as the Croatoan or Hatteras tribe. Perhaps the word Croatoan was just written to mean, "Look, we are over here." And of course, there have been reports of Native American descendants in the area possessing European characteristics, such as light eyes and hair. But if they did integrate with the tribes, where was the proof of that? Why did White or any other concerned person not hear from them? Some propose something entirely different. According to some historians, the settlers themselves could have been eradicated from the region by hostile tribes. It is not very easy to have friendly interaction with the English, therefore it possibly got violent. But here's the weird part. There has not been any proof for the existence of a battle or massacre proof, just an eerie silence, no bones, and no weapons at all. Then we move into the horror zone slowly. Do you know such a thing as the curse of Croatoan? Yeah, it gets weird. That is why some people suppose that the settlers were victims of some witchcraft or curse. Anyway, Croatoan is referred to in history at some point, quite unexpectedly. There are stories that even Blackbeard the pirate had written the word Croatoan on the post of his bed before he was captured. And get this, some believe that, right before his death, Poe mouthed the words Croatoan and died under very strange circumstances. Oh, and the perfectly nicknamed ghost ship that we all know and love, the Carroll A. Deering, this vessel struck the sands off Hatteras in 1921. It was abandoned, and in the log someone had written, yes, you've guessed it, Croatoan. Creepy, right? Of course, this is not the final secret that has to be discussed. Dare stones should be mentioned. Now, we have seen these stones as being carved by Eleanor Dare, the daughter of John White, and they tell the story of the colonists of Roanoke. Just think of it, these stones, almost like a letter written directly in the stone with individual stories of the settlers and even messages from Eleanor to her father. And when you visualize, it sounds like the key to unlock the mystery, don't you? Well, not so fast. Alas, the stones might appear to be the perfect piece in the puzzle. Most historians are convinced that they are fakes, a forgery. Some academic talks have been made regarding it, and some researchers have proposed that one stone could have some real evidence behind it. All the same, the Dare stones fit perfectly as an additional twist to a very eerie story. Now, fast forward into more modernity. In 1998, some archaeological digging found clay fragments. English products and items that only the Roanoke settlers could have owned have been recovered from Croatoan settlements. These leads have added credence to the theory that the settlers did not simply disappear. Instead, they may have assimilated into Native American society. But again, what we have here are more questions than answers. While the artifacts shine some light into the interactions between the settlers and the Hatteras tribe, they do not offer the complete answer to the mystery. That seems like the more we come closer to solving it, the more the truth evades us. It can be suggested that some of the settlers succeeded in getting to Croatoan Island and lived among the tribes, but those artifacts only lead to more questions than answers. The definite evidence of what led to the coup is still missing. In 2012, another leap appeared. John White's map of the region was re-examined, and under a patch, the researchers discovered the vague image of a fort. Still, others believe the settlers might have attempted to move further north and construct a new fort in secret. Perhaps they believed that it would provide for better safety or support. But as always, no traces of these structures have been discovered at the mentioned location. Roanoke has been associated with all forms of mystery for quite some time, especially in present-day popular culture. It's even been written about in books, films, TV series. The latest season of American Horror Story was based upon it. It always seems to me that there's something special about the mere disappearance of an entire colony for people to commute to a place on a daily basis. It has always been my thing of history in conjunction with mystery and a hint of paranormal activities. And that is why people got so afraid of Roanoke Colony in the first place. It is not that these people vanished, it is how they vanished. That's enough. No sign of a fight, no bodies, nobody to tell anyone what happened. Nothing more than an abandoned town, and that mysterious inscription, Croatoan, written on a piece of a tree. They could as well have never existed. They disappeared from the face of the earth, only to be remembered in vague, powerful questions. In line with this, some people have suggested that the ghosts of the settlers still roam around the island. Even in my own interpretation, we find a connection towards such folklore, where people are said to be seeing specters cross roads, even in the thick of the fog, ghosts loitering at night. Some people claim that faint voices can be heard on the breeze, as if the settlers wanted to tell the world what happened why to them, and trying to get through for all these hundreds of years. People think Roanoke was a real ghost story, or at least that Roanoke has an eeriness to it. It is as if the island does not want to let the world forget about it. The thing is, we may never find out what has truly happened to the settlers of Roanoke. Perhaps they went to live with the Croatoan tribe, or that something far worse befell them. Anyway, the mystery stands till the present time. For more than 400 years, people still cannot answer it. It's the kind of mystery that gets under your skin, making you wonder, hey, how could something like this happen? Could an entire race or population just vanish overnight? And what makes the fate of the Roanoke colony memorable is partly that it touches upon some of mankind's most basic phobias. The fear of being lost and never being found again. The fear of never being found is one of the parental fears within this disappearance of the tribe as well. And the torment that in the end nobody will ever know what became of you. That's what makes it so haunting. Settlers did not vanish, but they faded away to become mere rumors. And quite frankly, never know for sure what happened to the Roanoke colonists, on the other hand. Ideally, that is the characteristic that makes this mystery so interesting. It still puzzles many of us, even after centuries have passed. The most popular theory is that the colonists saw something they could not deal with, sickness or aggression. Facing microbes from the New World, microbes their bodies have never encountered before, one could easily envision how a pandemic could have wiped them out in no time. Or perhaps the settlers were faced with a problem of conflict with the locals. That may be true, but whatever the crisis was that befell the colonists, that upheaval made them act in ways that they had not done before. This can explain the belief that every time things turned sour, the colonists fanned out into small groups, in the hope that some of them might stand a better chance of surviving. Straight, it is a very intelligent move in developing any survival plan. In fact, the group that arrived in 1585 had been ordered to disperse if the worst occurred, and it can be assumed that the same was true of the 1587 settlers. I mean, just consider it. Over 100 people couldn't possibly stay alive as a group in the wild. No individual Native American tribe or village could have been capable of sustaining so many numbers at a time. Moved by splitting up, they perhaps wanted to integrate into various regions in the hope of getting support from the smaller tribes on the way. The current accepted reason is that the colonists went 50 miles south to Hatteras Island, which in early was called Croatoan Island. There is historical evidence as to this, but what if all did not go south? Other scholars believe that a group could have moved west, toward the Albemarle Sound, or the Chowan River. Perhaps they sought out a friendly indigenous tribe and hid in an enclosed bay where there was sufficient cover for the Phoenicians to stave off the Romans at a lower scale while they awaited a chance at a counterattack. In addition, the recent archaeological studies shed light on the point of the small Native American town called Metiquem, where the part of the Roanoke colonists might have found shelter. Well, we don't know much about Metiquem or its people, but here is what is known. Indeed, Metiquem was real. The town, however, has been confirmed by archaeological evidence, which brings into the picture again another potential scenario that may have befallen the settlers. But confusing the history even more is the recent discovery of the town of Metiquem, for which there is only slender evidence that the colonists had anything to do with the place. It brings one more clue. Yet, like so many other clues, it only raises more questions about the fate of those vanished settlers. Did some of them get a second chance in Metiquem? Or rather, the blind alley in the quest to find the truth of the matter? In any case, the tragedy of Metiquem underlines how much we can still claim that we do not know. One can easily picture the starving colonists, the survivors of that tragic winter, wandering into Metaquem and finding the Indians there either friendly or at any rate indifferent. Perhaps they just bartered, interacted, and eventually became assimilated by the local people of this island. It is a theory that assimilates into the genre that colonists did not huddle together in pairs, but separately to look for assistance in any which way. This idea opens up a whole new possibility. The colonists did not disappear from the face of the earth, or disappear without trace. Indeed, they dispersed in various parts of the globe, in what they believed could be safer and survivable conditions. Despite all the clues pointing to what could have gone wrong, we are left to guess what actually happened to them. Perhaps someday the unknown becomes known, and we discover what actually has happened all these years. However, the story of the Roanoke colony is filled with hope, fear, and the unsolved mystery of the lost colony of Roanoke. And as long as we are interested in the unexplainable, we will always have the lost colony in mind and how little we understand our world.